The emergency beacon pierced through the darkness of space like a scream in the night. Deep within the Galactic Council's monitoring station, alarms blared as the desperate signal reached their receivers. Commander Hyeonsu Kim rushed to the Central Command Center, his boots echoing against the metallic floor. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a terrified Zilani farmer. His blue-scaled face was streaked with tears, and smoke billowed behind him from burning crops. His voice cracked with desperation as he spoke into what appeared to be a makeshift communicator. Double quotes, please. Anyone who can hear this transmission. The Korthok Empire has arrived at our world. Their massive ships block out our sun. We are simple farmers on Kepler 4 for 2b. We grow food for 7 different sectors of the galaxy. We have no weapons, no military, no defenses. We are peaceful people. Farmers' hands shook as explosions echoed in the background. They landed 3 hours ago. Their soldiers are like nightmares made real. They speak of chains, of slavery, of taking our children to work in their mines. Our eldest remember stories of worlds that simply vanished after the Korthok came. Please, if there is anyone out there with the power to help us, we beg you, send help before it's too late. The transmission suddenly cut to static as a massive shadow passed over the farmer's location. The silence that followed was more terrifying than any scream. Commander Hyeonsu stared at the empty hologram, his jaw clenched tight around the circular council chamber. Representatives from dozens of different species began whispering among themselves. The Andromedan's tentacles writhed nervously. The crystalline beings from Rigel dimmed their natural glow. Even the usually calm Centaurians shifted uncomfortably in their seats. How long until the Korthok completely overrun the planet? Asked Ambassador Zella, her feline features twisted with concern. Based on their previous conquests, 6 hours maximum, replied the tactical officer, a formed being from the Vega system. The Zilani have absolutely no military capabilities. They're completely defenseless. Admiral Thalon of the Rigel Federation rose from his seat, his crystalline body catching the chamber's light. The Korthok Empire is like a plague spreading. Across our galaxy, every world they touch becomes a slave colony. Every species they encounter either bows down or gets wiped out completely. What about our peacekeeping forces? Demanded Counselor Mira, her reptilian tail lashing with frustration. Thalon's crystalline head drooped, stretched impossibly thin across 3 different sectors. We have conflicts brewing near the Outer Rim, the Thanatos Rebellion in the Western Spiral, and now this. Our nearest fleet is 4 days away from Kepler 44b. By the time they arrive, the Zilani will either be dead or in chains. The chamber fell into a heavy silence. Every representative knew the brutal reputation of the Korthok Empire. They didn't just conquer worlds. They erased entire cultures. Species that had existed for thousands of years simply disappeared without a trace. From the darkest corner of the chamber, a raspy voice spoke up. There is another option available to us. All eyes turned toward Counselor Vex, an insectoid being whose species rarely spoke during council sessions. His multiple black eyes reflected the chamber's lights like polished obsidian. His mandibles clicked nervously as he continued. The Deathworlders from Sol 3, the humans of Earth, collective shudder ran through the chamber like a cold wind. Several representatives actually took a step backward. The mention of Earth always had this effect on galactic politics. Are you completely insane? Hissed Ambassador Krell, his scales turning a deep red color that indicated extreme alarm. Earth is quarantined for a reason.
Oh.
Those beings are dangerous beyond comprehension. They come from a world that actively tries to kill its inhabitants, added Counselor Thane, his voice trembling. Their planet has deadly weather, poisonous creatures, natural disasters that can destroy entire continents. Somehow impossibly, they became the dominant species on that nightmare world. Commander Hyeonsu had heard the stories whispered in the deepest corners of space stations and trading posts. Earth was a legend among spacefaring species, a world so hostile that evolution had created something terrifying the humans had requested. Complete isolation from galactic affairs 47 years ago, and the Council had eagerly agreed to leave them alone. They specifically requested no contact, Hyeonsu said slowly. We promise to respect their isolation. The Zilani are facing extinction, Vex replied, his compound eyes glinting. Sometimes desperate times require desperate measures. May be dangerous, but they are also effective. Very effective. The debate that followed was heated. Some council members argued that contacting Earth would be like releasing a predator into their carefully maintained galactic ecosystem. Others pointed out that the Korthok Empire posed an even greater threat to galactic stability. Finally, Commander Hayansu raised his hand for silence. The decision is mine to make, as today's acting council leader. Send the message to Earth. But make it clear this is a rescue mission, not a declaration of war. Maybe they'll show mercy to the Zilani. The communication officer, a young Altarian with bright purple skin, worked frantically at her console. Message transmitted to Sol. System Commander, it will take approximately 6 hours to reach them through our fastest subspace channels. Now we wait, Hayansu murmured. They didn't have to wait long. Less than 4 hours later, alarms began sounding throughout the station. The communication officer looked up with wide, frightened eyes. Commander, we're receiving a response from Earth. Put it through, Hayansu ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was unlike anything the council members had heard before. It was completely devoid of emotion, mechanical in its precision, cold as the vacuum of space itself. Galactic Council Station, your message has been received and processed. Earth Defense Force response is already inbound to designated coordinates. Estimated arrival time, 18 hours. Do not attempt further communication. Earth Defense Force, out. The transmission ended with a sharp click that seemed to echo through the chamber's silence. 18 hours? Whispered Admiral Thalen. That's impossible. Even our fastest ships would take 3 days to reach Kepler-44 to be from Earth.
Commander?
Hayansu stared at the communication console, a chill running down his spine. What exactly have we just unleashed? The fabric of space itself seemed to tear open as 3 dark shapes emerged from hyperspace. Captain Doyen Park felt the familiar sensation of reality snapping back into place as her ship, the Apex Hunter, completed its jump near Kepler-4 for 2B. Behind her, 2 sister ships materialized in perfect formation, the Silent Death and Void Stalker. These weren't the massive battleships that other galactic civilizations preferred. Earth's vessels were different. Sleek, angular, and pitch black, they looked more like deep-sea predators than traditional spacecraft. Every curve and line had been designed for one purpose, killing efficiently and silently. Complete, Captain, reported Navigation Officer Wu Jin at his station. All systems nominal. We are in the Kepler-4 B system. Dujian stood on the bridge, her dark eyes scanning the tactical displays that surrounded her command chair. Her uniform was simple, practical, no medals, no decorations. Earth's military didn't believe in ceremony when there was work to be done. Sensors sweep complete, announced Lieutenant Jae-ho Yoon from the tactical station. His fingers danced across holographic controls, painting a 3-dimensional picture of the system. Captain, you need to see this. The main display lit up with hundreds of red contacts. Korthok warships surrounded the blue-green planet like angry wasps around a hive. Massive dreadnoughts hung in high orbit alongside smaller cruisers and fighters. It was an invasion fleet designed to crush any resistance. 837 enemy vessels confirmed, Jae-ho reported, his voice steady despite the overwhelming numbers. Their flagship is a Dominator-class dreadnought. Weapon signature suggests enough firepower to glass the entire planet's surface. Before Duyan could respond, the communications array crackled to life. The desperate voice of colony leader Fental filled the bridge, his amphibious features appearing on the main screen. His large, wet eyes were filled with hope for the first time in days. Blessed stars above, you actually came. Fental's voice trembled with emotion. We thought we were going to die here. The Korthok soldiers are everywhere. We've already taken 3 of our farming settlements. Please, do you have medical supplies? Our wounded are suffering. Do you have evacuation ships? We can start loading the children first. The bridge crew exchanged glances, but Dujan's expression remained. completely neutral. Her voice, when she spoke, was as cold as the vacuum of space. Negative. We did not come to evacuate you. The hope in Fentel's eyes flickered like a candle in the wind. But you're here to help us, right? The Galactic Council sent you to save us? We came to eliminate a threat, Duyan replied. Simply, nothing more. Sergeant Minhali, seated at the weapons station, looked up from her console. Her hands moved constantly across the controls, cataloging targets and calculating firing solutions. Captain, incoming transmission from the Korthok flagship. It's their fleet commander. Put it through, Duyan ordered. The hologram that materialized above the communications console was a nightmare-given form. General Throck stood nearly 3 meters tall, his reptilian body covered in thick scarred scales. His arms were massive, each one capable of crushing a human skull. Multiple battle scars crisscrossed his hide, trophies from countless conquered worlds, but it was his eyes that were truly terrifying. They held the cold intelligence of a born killer, someone who had turned warfare into an art form. Throke's predatory grin revealed rows of serrated teeth, each one as long as a human finger. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding stone mixed with the hiss of escaping gas. Well, well, well. The mighty Galactic Council sends 3 pathetic little ships to face my grand armada? His laughter was like the roar of some ancient beast. You Deathworlders must be even more primitive than our intelligence reports suggested.
Yes.
I expected at least a dozen vessels. Maybe some of those fancy Regellian crystal ships. Yeah. He leaned forward, his massive claws scraping against his command. Consul, here's what's going to happen, little humans. You're going to power down your weapons, open your airlocks, and surrender immediately. If you do this without resistance, I might be generous enough to let you serve as my personal slaves. You could spend your remaining years entertaining me. With stories of your primitive world, the bridge of the Apex Hunter fell completely silent. Every human crew member stared at the hologram with expressions that would have chilled the blood of any galactic observer. It wasn't fear in their eyes. It was the patient calculation of apex predators sizing up their prey. Du-Yon took a single step forward, her hands clasped behind her back. When she spoke, her voice carried the absolute certainty of someone who had never lost a battle. General Throck, you have been identified as a threat to a world under Earth's protection. You have one opportunity to withdraw all forces from this system immediately. Throke's laughter boomed even louder, echoing through his massive flagships. Command Center. Several of his subordinates, smaller reptilian creatures, joined in with their own hissing chuckles. Or what, little human? You going to file a complaint with the Galactic Council? Send them a strongly worded message about how mean we are? His eyes glittered with cruel amusement. I have conquered 47 worlds, enslaved entire species. I have turned planets into burning wastelands just because it amused me. What exactly do you think 3 tiny ships can do against 800? Duyan's expression never changed. She didn't raise her voice, didn't make threats, didn't engage in the dramatic posturing that other species seemed to enjoy. Instead, she simply stated a fact. We will do what we do best. With that, she made a cutting gesture across her throat. The transmission ended immediately, leaving Throke's mocking laughter cut off mid-sound. The bridge remained silent for several seconds. Then Sergeant Minhali spoke up, her voice filled with anticipation. All weapons systems are online and ready, Captain. Targeting solutions are locked and loaded. Lieutenant Jae-ho Yoon checked his tactical display one final time. Stealth. Systems are charged and ready for deployment. Enemy ships are maintaining standard formation. They have no idea what's about to hit them. Duyan moved to her command chair and settled into it like a predator preparing to strike. Around her, the bridge crew went about their duties with the calm efficiency of professionals who had trained for this moment their entire lives. All ships, this is Apex Hunter, she spoke into her command communicator. Execute Protocol 7. Silent running. Begin the hunt. The 3 Earth vessels seemed to simply vanish from the Korthok sensors, disappearing into the darkness of space like sharks diving into deep water. General Throck would learn soon enough what it meant to threaten something that the children of Earth had decided to protect. The hunt had begun. The attack began at exactly 0300 ship time. But there were no warning alarms, no dramatic declarations of war, no flashy displays of firepower. The humans simply disappeared from every sensor screen in the Korthok fleet and began doing what evolution had trained them to do for millions of years. Hunt Lieutenant Commander Sung-Jin Choi gripped the controls of his stealth fighter as it glided silently through the asteroid fields surrounding Kepler 442b, his ship. The Ghost Wing was a masterpiece of Earth engineering. Its hull absorbed sensor waves like a black hole swallowing light. To the Korthok detection systems, it simply didn't exist. Sung-Jin had been tracking a supply convoy for the past 20 minutes, watching their predictable patrol route through his advanced targeting system. 3 massive cargo ships escorted by 6 fighters, carrying weapons and supplies to the ground forces. They moved through space with the confidence of predators who had never encountered anything more dangerous than themselves. "Target acquired," he whispered into his comm system. Beginning attack run. His fighter moved like a shadow through the asteroids, using the floating rocks as cover. The Korthok convoy never saw him coming. When he finally struck, it was with the surgical precision of a master surgeon removing a tumor. The first cargo ship died instantly as Sung-Jin's plasma torpedoes punched through its engine core. But instead of creating a spectacular explosion that would alert the entire fleet, the ship simply went dark. Its lights flickered out, its engines died, and its hull began venting atmosphere in tiny, almost invisible streams. The crew inside had maybe 30 seconds before the cold vacuum claimed them. The escort fighters spun frantically, searching for an enemy they couldn't see. Their sensors showed nothing but empty space and drifting asteroids. One pilot fired randomly into the darkness, his panic obvious even through the cum chatter. "Where are they? Where are they?" The Korthok pilot screamed in his harsh, reptilian language. Sung-Jin was already behind him, his weapons charging. Another silent strike, another dead ship. No explosions, no fireworks, just efficient, terrifying death delivered from the shadows. Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, Master Sergeant Yoonji Nam led her 12-person squad through terrain that would have been instantly lethal to most galactic species. The Zilani homeworld was what the galaxy classified as a garden world, peaceful, temperate, perfect for agriculture. But even garden worlds had their dangerous areas. The squad moved through the crimson marshlands, where the water glowed with radioactive minerals and the air was thick with poisonous spores. Most alien species would have needed full environmental suits and radiation shielding. The humans wore their standard combat armor and breathed the toxic air through simple filtration masks. "This is actually pretty nice," muttered Private Hyjin as she stepped over a bubbling pool of acid. "Reminds me of that training exercise we did in the Australian outback." Yeonji smiled grimly inside her helmet. Earth had trained its children well. A world where hurricanes could level cities, where bacteria could kill you in hours, where the very air and water could be poisonous. It had forged humans into something that could survive anywhere. The Korthok ground forces had established a forward base in the marshlands, thinking the hostile environment would protect them from any counterattack. They had never encountered beings who called such places home. "Contact front, 200 meters, whispered Corporal Jin Wuhan from his sniper position. Through his scope, he could see Korthok soldiers patrolling the perimeter of their base. Their reptilian forms were easy targets, even in the swirling. Toxic Mist Jinwoo's rifle was a work of art, designed to punch through starship hull plating, could turn a Korthok soldier's power armor into scrap metal. He took careful aim at the patrol leader, adjusted for wind and atmospheric pressure, squeezed the trigger. The shot was nearly silent, muffled by advanced suppressors. The Korthok soldier simply collapsed, a hole the size of a dinner plate. Blown through his chest armor, his companions looked around in confusion, their sensors unable to detect the sniper's position. "Kirith is down," one of them hissed into his cum. "I don't see any." Another silent shot, another dead soldier. The remaining Korthok began to panic, firing wildly into the mist. Their energy weapons lit up the swamp like lightning, but they were shooting at ghosts. Back in orbit, General Throck stood in his command center watching his tactical display with growing horror. Red contacts were disappearing from his screen at an alarming rate. Supply convoys, patrol squadrons, communication satellites, they were all going dark one by one. Status report, he roared at his sensor operator, a smaller reptilian creature, who was frantically working at his console. Sir, we've lost contact with 17 vessels in the past hour. The supply convoy in Sector 7 just went silent. Ground forces are reporting attacks across multiple fronts, but ... the operator's voice trailed off. But what? Throke's massive claws scraped against his command throne. Sir, they're not reporting any enemy contacts. The attacks are happening, but our forces can't see who's doing it. It's like they're fighting shadows. Throke's scarred hide rippled with barely controlled rage. How many ships are the humans using? Where's their main fleet? The sensor operators? Mandibles clicked nervously. According to our long-range sensors, it's still just the 3 vessels. But we can't track them. They appear on our screens for maybe 2 seconds, destroy something, then vanish completely. It's like they're not even there. On the bridge of the Apex Hunter, Captain Doyon Park watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Her ships were performing exactly as designed. The Silent Death had just eliminated an entire squadron of Korthok fighters near the planet's 3rd moon. The Voidstalker was systematically destroying communication relays, cutting off the enemy's ability to coordinate their forces. Captain, reported Lieutenant Jae-ho-yoon, enemy forces are attempting to regroup in defensive formations. They're pulling back toward their flagship. Dujan nodded, expected behavior. Prey animals always cluster together when predators are nearby. It makes them feel safer. Should we press the attack? Negative. Let them gather. Let them think they're safe. Fear is a weapon too, and we want them to understand exactly what they're facing. In his command center, General Throck felt something he had never experienced in his 40 years of conquest. His hands shook slightly as he gripped his command throne. His usually confident voice had developed a slight tremor. For the first time in his career, the great General Throck was afraid. All ships fall back to defensive positions around the flagship, he ordered. Maintain tight formations. Watch for any movement in the shadows. But even as he gave the orders, Throck knew the truth that was beginning to dawn on him. He wasn't fighting soldiers, wasn't even fighting warriors. He was being hunted by apex predators. And in their natural element, predators always won by. The 3rd day of the hunt, the space around Kepler-442b had become a graveyard. Twisted metal and debris fields marked the spots where once mighty Korthok warships had met their end. General Throke's grand armada of 800 vessels had been reduced to less than 400. And those remaining survivors clustered together like frightened animals. The Korthok forces had tried everything. They formed defensive circles. With their biggest ships on the outside, they sent out decoy fleets to draw the humans into open battle. They even attempted to use the planet's civilians as shields, threatening to bombard the surface if the attacks continued. Nothing worked. Humans fought like no species the galaxy had ever encountered. They didn't follow traditional military doctrine. They didn't engage in honorable ship-to-ship combat. They struck from the shadows, disappeared before retaliation was possible, and left only death in their wake. Captain Doyon Park stood on the bridge of the Apex Hunter, watching the tactical display with the patient satisfaction of a predator who knew the hunt was nearly over. Around her, the crew worked with quiet efficiency, their faces showing no emotion as they cataloged the destruction they had wrought. Captain, reported Lieutenant Jae-ho-yoon, we're receiving a transmission from the Korthok flagship. General Throck, he's requesting immediate communication. Doyon glanced at the communication console, put him through. The hologram that materialized was barely recognizable as the arrogant general who had mocked them 3 days earlier. Throke's massive frame seemed to have shrunk. His scarred scales had lost their luster, and his once predatory eyes now darted nervously around his command center. Most telling of all, his voice shook when he spoke. Human Captain, Throck began, his words tumbling over each other in his haste. I am formally requesting a ceasefire. My forces are prepared to withdraw from this system immediately. We surrender unconditionally. Behind him, his bridge crew looked equally defeated. Some of the smaller reptilian officers were actually trembling. The mighty Korthok Empire, terror of the galaxy, had been reduced to begging for mercy. "Please," Throck continued, his voice cracking. "We have wounded soldiers who need medical attention. Our supply ships are running low on life support. Surely even Deathworlders show mercy to those who surrender." On the surface of Kepler 44-B, colony leader Fentel and his advisors listened. To the transmission with growing hope, the Korthok were surrendering. The nightmare was finally over. They expected the humans to accept the surrender with relief, to offer medical assistance, to begin the process of rebuilding. Instead, Captain Dushan's response sent ice through the veins of every being listening. "General Throck," she said, her voice carrying the cold certainty of absolute predator, "you mistake us for the prey." The bridge fell silent. Even Throck's desperate breathing seemed to stop. "Predators," Duyan continued, "don't negotiate with those who threaten the pack. You came to this system to enslave and destroy. You showed no mercy to the Zilani farmers. You offered no quarter to the defenseless. Why would you expect mercy from us?" Throck's image flickered as his hands shook on the communication controls. But we surrender. The galactic conventions require. Earth never signed your galactic conventions. Doyon cut him off. We follow our own code." The Hunters. Code. And that code is simple. Eliminate the threat completely. The transmission ended with a sharp click, leaving Throck staring at an empty hologram projector. Around him, his surviving bridge crew began to understand the terrible truth. There would be no negotiation, no mercy, no escape. The humans had come to finish what the Korthok had started. Aboard the Silent Death, Colonel Taman coordinated the final phase of the operation. The ship's advanced targeting computers had cataloged every remaining Korthok vessel. Each one was tagged, tracked, and marked for elimination. There would be no survivors, no escape pods, no witnesses to carry. Tails back to the Korthok homeworld. Sir reported his communications officer, a young woman named Yujin, whose calm professionalism never wavered. "We're receiving multiple transmissions from the Galactic Council. They're demanding that we cease hostilities immediately and accept the Korthok surrender." Taman didn't even look up from his tactical display. "Response time? The nearest Council peacekeeping fleet is approximately 72 hours out, sir." "The hunt will be finished long before then," Taman replied, his voice carrying no more emotion than if he were discussing the weather. "Continue with the operation." Throughout the system, the remaining human forces moved with deadly precision. Master Sergeant Yunji Nam's ground team had eliminated the last Korthok planetary installations. Lieutenant Commander Sungjin Choi's fighter squadron hunted down every escape pod and evacuation shuttle. No one would leave this system alive to spread word of Earth's capabilities. The final engagement took place in the shadow of Kepler 4 for 2B's largest moon. The last surviving Korthok ships had formed a desperate defensive circle around their flagship, their weapons pointed outward in all directions. They fired blindly into the darkness, hoping to hit something. Anything. The three human vessels emerged from the moon's shadow like ancient sea monsters rising from the depths, their weapons designed to crack open the hulls of creatures far more dangerous than alien warships, spoke with quiet authority. The Apex Hunter's main cannon fired once. The beam of concentrated energy punched through the Korthok flagship's shields as if they were made of paper. Throke's massive dreadnought split in half, its hull cracking open like an egg struck by a hammer. The Void Stalker and Silent Death moved through the remaining ships with surgical precision. Each shot was carefully aimed, each target chosen for maximum effect. Within minutes, the last of the Korthok fleet was nothing but expanding clouds of debris and venting atmosphere in the silence that followed. Captain Duyan opened a channel to the Zilani colony below. "Colony leader Fentel," she said, her voice carrying across the void. "The threat has been eliminated. All Korthok forces in this system have been neutralized." Fentel's voice trembled as he responded, "Captain, we don't know how to thank you. You saved our entire civilization." We didn't save you, Dujan corrected him. We eliminated a threat. That's what predators do. The three Earth vessels began to move toward the edge of the system, their mission complete. Behind them, the debris of the Korthok fleet slowly spread through space, a monument to what happened when someone threatened something that the children of Earth had decided to protect. The hunt was over. The predators were returning to the dark between the stars, waiting for the next threat to emerge, and somewhere in the depths of space, other species who had been watching the battle began to understand a terrifying truth. Earth hadn't just sent soldiers to Kepler-44 to B. They had sent apex predators. Apex predators never left survivors. The silence that followed the destruction of the Korthok fleet was more terrifying than any battle cry. Where once 800 warships had blotted out the stars around Kepler-4 for to be, now only twisted metal and slowly expanding debris clouds remained. The three human vessels hung motionless in space like patient sharks, their dark hulls reflecting the light of the system's dying fires. Captain Duyan Park stood on the bridge of the Apex Hunter, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the final pieces of enemy wreckage streak through the planet's atmosphere like falling stars. Each burning fragment represented the end of a ship that had terrorized countless worlds, crews that had enslaved entire civilizations, weapons that had turned peaceful planets into ash around her. The bridge crew worked with the same cold efficiency they had shown throughout the battle. No one celebrated, no one cheered. They simply performed their duties, preparing for departure as if they had just completed a routine training exercise rather than annihilating one of the galaxy's most feared military forces. Lieutenant Jae-ho Yoon monitored his sensors, cataloging the debris fields and ensuring no Korthok vessels had somehow survived. Sergeant Minha Lee powered down the weapon systems, her targeting computers already calculating ammunition expenditure for the mission report. The crew of the Apex Hunter treated war like any other job, something to be done efficiently, and without emotion. The communication array crackled to life, breaking the bridge's professional silence. Colony leader Fentales's voice came through the speakers, trembling with a mixture of gratitude and barely contained terror. Captain Park, he began, his amphibious features appearing on the main display. Behind him, other Zilani leaders huddled together, their large eyes reflecting the orange glow of fire still burning on their world's surface. We don't know how to thank you. You saved our entire species from extinction. Duyan turned toward the communication console, her expression as neutral as ever. The threat has been eliminated. Mission parameters have been fulfilled. But surely you'll stay for a while. Help us rebuild our damaged settlements. We have wounded who could benefit from your medical technology. Fentel's voice carried the desperate hope of someone who had looked death in the face and somehow survived. Negative, Duyan replied without hesitation. Our mission was to eliminate the Korthok threat. That objective has been completed. We have no further business in this system. Zilani leader's hope flickered like a candle in the wind. But what if they come back? What if the Korthok Empire sends reinforcements? What if other predator species decide to attack us? For the first time since the battle began, Duyan's expression changed slightly. A thin smile crossed her lips, but it held no warmth, no reassurance. It was the smile of an apex predator acknowledging a fundamental truth about the universe. Then, you will face the same choice every species in this galaxy must eventually face, she said, her voice carrying the cold certainty of someone who had seen countless worlds rise and fall. Become strong enough to defend yourselves, or become extinct. Earth will not coddle the weak. The communication channel fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. The Zilani had been saved, but they had not been adopted. The humans had eliminated a threat, but they had not become protectors. Earth's children followed their own code, and that code was simple: survive or die. Do-Wa-Eo and gestured to her communications officer. Open a channel to all vessels. Prepare for system-wide transmission. Throughout the Kepler-442b system, every functional communication array, every surviving satellite, Every piece of electronic equipment capable of receiving signals suddenly activated. The message that followed would be recorded, transmitted, and repeated across thousands of worlds in the days to come. This is Captain Du Yan Park of the Earth's Defense Force. Her voice echoed through the void, carrying across space with the authority of absolute power. Let it be known throughout all systems. To every species that calls the galaxy home, Earth does not respond to distress calls with kindness. We do not come bearing gifts of peace or promises of protection. She paused, letting her words sink. In across the countless listening posts that monitored galactic communications, we respond with survival. We are the children of a death world, forged in the crucible of a planet that tried to kill us every single day. We have become death itself, and we have learned to wield it with precision. The message continued, transmitted on every frequency, in every language, through every communication network that connected the civilized galaxy. Threaten those we deem worthy of protection, and you will face extinction, not defeat, not surrender, not negotiation, complete and total annihilation. This is our promise. This is our warning. This is the reality of what it means to stand against the apex predators of Sal 3. As the transmission ended, the 3 human vessels began to move. Their sleek, predatory forms turned away from Kepler-4 to be and toward the edge of the system. The Apex Hunter, Silent Death, Voidstalker engaged their hyperspace drives with the quiet efficiency that had marked everything they did. Space itself seemed to bend around them as they prepared to vanish into the infinite darkness, between the stars. But just before they disappeared, one final message echoed through the system. To the galaxy, we are returning to the shadows. We will be watching. We will be waiting. And when the next threat emerges, we will be ready. The 3 ships vanished in brilliant flashes of light, leaving behind only empty space and the slowly cooling debris of the Korthok fleet. The silence that followed was different from before, not the silence of death, but the silence of a universe that had just learned to fear something new. In the days that followed, the story spread. From trading posts to diplomatic stations, from mining colonies to core worlds, the tale of Kepler-4 to be traveled faster than light itself. The galaxy learned that Earth had not sent soldiers or peacekeepers or diplomats. They had sent apex predators, and apex predators, as every species in the galaxy now understood, did not offer kindness. They offered something far more valuable to those who deserved it, far more terrifying to those who didn't. They offered the absolute certainty that in a universe full of dangers, humanity had evolved to be the most dangerous thing of all. The Korthok Empire's survivors, the few who had been away from the fleet during the battle, would carry the tale back to their homeworld. They would speak of ships that appeared from nowhere, of weapons that killed without mercy, of humans who fought like the very concept of death given form. The legend would grow with each telling, spreading through the galaxy like ripples in a dark pond. And somewhere in the depths of space, the children of Earth waited in the shadows, patient as the void itself. Ready to hunt again when the next threat emerged. The end.